Hey Opcom. So today we are going to talk about LAMS, how it works, why it works, and what we need to be doing to make LAMS work for us and not against us like it has been. So, the first big principle of LAMS that we need to get over as a department is quick spawning AI, which I mean just placing them and tasking them. LAMS needs about 30 seconds for it to be able to function well. So I'm going to go ahead and spawn a couple of AI teams that I'll use later. So while these guys get set up, LAMS is not an AI skill enhancer like VCOM. It's not. It doesn't affect the AI skill or precision level. That's affected on the server settings. LAMS doesn't do that. LAMS reads what's called the danger.fsm file. So what is that? It is the file that engages when the AI enter combat mode. So until the AI are in combat mode or re-enter combat mode when they leave it, they are normal ARMA AI. So all of my lovely friends over here are regular ass ARMA AI. And what do I mean by that? So let's take Bravo 1-2. I need Bravo 1-2 to move from here over to here. All of these AI these guys are going to work like ARMA. So if I put them over here, the most logical way to get there is going to be for them to clear these buildings and move up and clear buildings and be tactical about it. But because they are vanilla ARMA AI, since they're set to aware, they are going to just run at it in a wedge formation, and they're going to try to path the best they can. ARMA AI have a level of tactical fuzziness, as LAMS puts it, in how they move and how they path. That tactical fuzziness creates kind of this cone and like zone of variability in how the AI get there. But as we all know, oftentimes they will still follow the same general path in a pretty terrible way, such as bypassing all of these buildings, not clearing any of them, and just rushing it. As you all are probably aware, I can change the waypoint to other things, and some of them involve LAMS. When you activate a LAMS waypoint, or you activate a LAMS task through the right-click menu of giving them a waypoint and telling them to do something, it activates LAMS. Once that task is sufficiently complete, and again, these are just regular AI moving, it will turn them back into regular AI. So if I tell them to go somewhere and assault it, when the AI get within a certain distance of the waypoint set on the server settings, they will turn back into regular ARMA AI unless their combat phase is still active. So as long as they don't return to aware, careless, safe, or stealth, they will act under the LAMS danger.fsm rewrite. So right now, they're in a wedge, and I want them to just get over here and do a simple move. Now, these AI, as we know again for the third time, are just going to run at it. It's not really going to make sense. They're not clearing much. They're just running. They're not entering a lot of the buildings. They're doing the best thing that ARMA can do, which is shitty AI pathing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete them. Now, I want you guys to start treating LAMS AI like a firing mission or a tasking for platoon. So I have Bravo 1-3 here. To task them, am going to go to modules, open up the LAMS files, and I'm going to click dynamic target, similar to us giving our AI or our players an objective. I'm going to click there. So dynamic target delta, because I've been testing this. I want them to close quarters combat, task CQB from here to dynamic target delta. Now you can always do self if I ever just want to plop them in the middle, wait 30 seconds and turn it on, and I'll show you that in a minute. So dynamic target delta. Radius, max distance the houses will be searched. I'm going to say this whole area here within 115 meters. Script interval is going to be the seconds. So the higher the cycle time in seconds, the higher number makes units search buildings more carefully. The default is 21. That is the standard for lambs, and if you guys don't want to change that and stick with that number, that's fine. So let's look at what a 21 does, and then we'll look at what a higher number does. So I'm going to hit OK, and you guys are going to hear a bunch of things. So right now, before I hit OK, the AI are aware, in a wedge formation, open-fired, keep formation, and normal movement. I am going to give them a CQB task, and I want you guys to listen to what happens, and then I'll reiterate it if you can't hear it.
Form file.
So he's called form file. I didn't do that, the AI did. Now, they are going to start moving to that dynamic target, but clearing houses along the way. So as we've seen out there, stacking up. They're clearing the bottom floor.
Ready.
They have to do a full stack, and then they spread
Ready.
out.
Standing by.
And they're going to do their best to start seeking out units. So now that they've registered that they did their stack, they're going to go upstairs. And if you guys notice, they have AI trailing, they have AI splitting up, going to different buildings, different locations, and sweeping rooms where they're crossing fire. They're a lot more lethal in ways they haven't been before. And they're going to continue doing that. So I'm going to leave them alone for a little bit. Now let's talk about these guys. While they're over there doing their tasking, I'm going to send these guys out. A big one that we are going to want to use is Task Assault. Task Assault is the relentless assault that the AI are going to do. Task Assault is an overarching one that works similar to the Task Rush, but it incorporates Task Rush instead of just using it. So I'm going to click on them. They're going to go to Dynamic Target Delta. They're not fleeing, and I'll explain that one in a minute. Completion threshold, let's say 8 meters. Script interval, 3 seconds. Hit OK.
Hold fire. Engage at will. Form line.
So they just switched to a line with hold fire, engage at will. So the AI are going to do that, and they're going to start rushing that objective. And when they are rushing, they're not going to clear buildings. They're not going to do the CQC that you see over here.
Ready. Ready.
They're just going to go as quickly as they can and safely as the AI can. And these AI, by the way, just opened garages for those of you that are paying attention. So they're just going to rush it. But as you see, they're not in the main thoroughfare. They're on the left-hand side of the road. They will move to cover if they come under fire. And this is because currently the danger.fsm script is active. In the assault case, where I had, I believe, 10 meters or 15 meters, once they get over here, they will revert back to regular AI. So they're going to come in here, and again, you see how they're tightly knit, covered fire, guns raised, ready for fighting. They're going to come in here, they're going to secure the area first, and now all of a sudden they're moving.
Fire at will.
And see, now it said disengage fire at will, and now all of a sudden they're back to regular Arma AI standing around. Our CQC guys over here are still thoroughly clearing the buildings, one floor and room at a time. There is a setting that we have turned off, but they will mark buildings. I just don't want to do that because it's going to get confusing for the player base. So they're going to keep clearing this building. This is how LAMS is supposed to work. We have not been using it correctly. That is the crux of how to assault and use different things. Now, what is the flee action? I'm going to move these guys over here. I'm going to paint a quick scenario, and then I'm going to use it. So this is the URF, or the UNSC if the 41st ever fuck up. They're being slaughtered over here, and we want to make a canonic forced flee. So what you're going to do is you're going to do assault task / retreat, click it. They're going to go to dynamic target delta, unit is fleeing. It is going to turn on full cowardice, and they're going to ignore enemies, and they are just going to run. So it's a great way to get our units to pull back when we need them to, when it's supposed to look like the players have pushed them back. This works with all AI, and they're just going to flee like this until they get to the dynamic waypoint, and they'll turn back to regular AI. So we can always set up a couple of these waypoints, set up a couple of these locations, and if we ever need to, we can have the AI do this, and they'll run away. Now, as you guys see, because of the radius of their CQC, they're clearing the whole block. So, in essence, if we ever have the players doing a stealth mission where they're, you know, I don't know, like over here on top of the fire station, and we need a team to start looking for them, we can just set a CQC waypoint to do this. Now, over here, we're going to talk about garrisoning. Garrisoning and camp are two different things, and we're going to go over both of them very quickly. So as you guys see on the right, there is task camp, task garrison, task patrol, and task reset. All of these are subclasses of lambs that are going to do different things depending on what we want them to do. So, task camp will set the AI. They will man static guns. They will man static objects. They'll man static vehicle turrets. And they'll enter general animations of sitting, standing, talking, because that's what they're expecting to do there. So for this example, I'm going to go ahead and place a MG Hog over here. And I'm going to place a simple lag turret over here. So 2 objects for them to use, right? They're there. I am going to, instead of using a waypoint, I'm just going to use task garrison, self, radius of, let's say, 72 meters, exit trigger. I prefer random, but obviously if we're talking a stealth mission, maybe we want the AI to feel suppressed or fired near. They have to physically be hit to ungarrison, whatever you want. In this case, I'll do random or I'll do all. So any of those things are going to do. I do not recommend this setting because it is going to put all of the AI on any available cover up at the top and nothing at the bottom. So I prefer leave that blank. If we're doing op setup and we need to be quick about it, teleport units. Dynamic patrol. This is a really interesting one. So I'm going to zoom closer. And as you guys can see, I have Bravo 1-3 and Bravo 1-4. They're still clearing over there, so. Task camp or task garrison do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do task garrison, 50 meters, dynamic patrol.
5, join Gunner. Get in that vehicle. 6, Gunner.
So the AI are going to start calling out commands, and if you notice, a 4-man squad broke off, or a 2-man squad broke off, and is now patrolling the general location that the AI are in. These AI manned a static lag turret, they manned the gun only, and they are moving to garrison these buildings. So it looks like they've both posted up in here. If there were more of them would garrison. And these two are going to remain on a small patrol over here, which we can always customize by dragging, like, for example, some of these waypoints that maybe I want the patrol square bigger, just like that. They are now on a patrol path around this compound. So in about 20 seconds, I was able to set up a very simple, easy garrison compound, including wandering AI, who are just going to path around. So it's a very efficient way for us to garrison compounds in a dynamic way. And all of these AI will break out of the garrison if any of the events listed happen, such as shot near, shot at, suppressed, hit. Any of those occur, they will break their garrison, and lambs will govern them because they will be under the lambs setting because it'll be listed as danger. These guys are taking a giant amount of time because there's a lot of enterable buildings over here. So that's kind of the crux of lambs. I'm just going to show you guys what camp does compared to garrison. So I'm going to go ahead and just give these guys a camp command on them on themselves, 50 radius, random, dynamic patrol 2. So camping, they're going to relax. They act less in a military zone and more in a relaxed combat zone or in a base. So it's really helpful. So see, this is what a camp does. They're just sitting and relaxing. Obviously, there's some great dynamic content we can do with them doing this, where essentially Like, let's use this area. You know, we've got a fire team, 30 seconds, and then I'll be able to do this. So let's go ahead and create maybe 4 of them to be dynamic, really dynamic with what we're doing today. So they all see each other, obviously. So they're noting each other. But these are regular Arma AI. Because, again, they are just not spawn. They have no content. They have no contact. And they are not governed by the LAMS module because they're not under combat. At any point, if I do this, these AI are now governed by LAMS. And will react accordingly. Obviously, they don't know what to do because there's no actual contact. But that is how LAMS works. It predicts them to be prepared for that combat. So we're going to go ahead and put them all in here. We'll go ahead and, you know, act like this is a UNSC base that we're just going to quickly do. So task camp. Let's go ahead and give them a dynamic patrol as well. So self, and then last waypoint. If the AI break their camp, where do they need to go? So I'm going to just make a very simple scenario. The players are somewhere over here, or that is the next URF stronghold. I am going to place a task camp on each of these. Self, okay. Task camp, self, okay. And then maybe this squad just is a no patrol, relaxed group of guys. So they're going to walk around and they're going to start establishing these dynamic stances and random animations, some sitting, some standing, ambient animation. So now we've got a dynamic campsite that just looks like a great thing for the players to assault. If the players do assault this, they will move to this dynamic waypoint as retreating. So it also allows us to make extremely dynamic combat scenarios where as the players push into a town, the AI will retreat back to a stronghold location. So that's kind of the crux of LAMS, are these cool tricks and abilities where utilizing these FSMs and waypoints are going to change how we can present this content to the players. Now, a big thing I know you're all probably thinking is, like, how do we use this to garrison quickly if the AI can't? And I'm just going to show you what the teleport module does because it is very nice. So this is obviously a very large city in the north side of Lingor. I'm not going to waste my time with a dynamic waypoint because we're not going to use it. So we'll go ahead and use URF now. Infantry URF. We'll go ahead and do what I usually do if I need, you know, giant groups quickly, and that's spawn some rifle squads. I'll go ahead and spawn them just kind of around rough locations, and obviously this is probably too many AI for where we're at currently, but that's okay. I'm just going to grab the task garrison, drop it on the AI, but you have to wait. So I almost didn't either. It's okay. Going to take some getting used to, not just dropping it on the AI as soon as they spawn. But after roughly 30 seconds, we're going to do task garrison, teleport units, and then just like before, you know, we'll have a normal 100% radius, right? Or 100 meter radius. And then we're just going to task garrison, okay. Task garrison, okay. Task garrison, okay. Task garrison, okay. So they're pretty spread out contact, not really, you know, necessarily the vibe we would be going with, because it's a little too spread out. And for my taste, I prefer close-knit and this like this. So now we've got our garrisons. Very quickly pop back over. Maybe grab a couple fire teams around the locations. Again, most likely way too much AI. And we're just going to knock a task patrol, range, max distance between waypoints. We'll leave it at 200. Number of waypoints, let's say 5. Dynamic patrol pattern is a very fun one. This unit will generate a new patrol pattern once one patrol cycle is completed, so they'll constantly change. And then dynamic reinforcements for the patrols are the unit will respond to the known enemy positions that are identified by allies. The reinforcement feature will override existing waypoints on group responding to calls. So I'm going to turn both of those on. So now they're going to start a patrol. Same thing with these guys. They're going to start a patrol. They're going to start a dynamic patrol. And I think that's all of the patrols I spawned. So now we've just very quickly established our AI into more realistic layouts, more realistic movement, and more realistic pathing. If you notice also, the patrols will take up positions and will take up formations that fit their location. So there's a patrol over here that we're in a wedge, as you guys remember, because that's how they spawn in. Well, now they're filing at. They're turning into a file, which is great because this makes more sense as to walk on the side of the road. Now, just for the sake of showing this in action, we have a super large complex here. A large city, large amounts of AI. You know, let's say the 41st had more units than they ever will. And let's say they have 2, 3, 4 weapon squads. Why not? And they're all going to different locations. So we're going to put a dynamic echo, one to here, dynamic foxtrot, and then let's say one over to here, dynamic golf. Now, I need our AI to do their job. So there are tasks such as these search modules, and then there's waypoints. This is where this gets weird. Task rush and hunt do not do what you think they do. Task rush and task hunt and task creep only affect players. If you use a task hunt, rush, or creep, the AI will metagame and cheat, identify the location of the closest player, and perform that action. So, task rush, the AI will charge the nearest player. It might explain why some of you have been having players get targeted very strangely. Task hunt will have the AI enter essentially stealth mode. They will get as close as they can without the players seeing them. Once the players hit them in line of sight, they will open fire. Task creep will do a more dynamic style that's really nice in like a seer op, such as the one that's coming up, where if I have a player here and I put a task creep command on AI over here, they will start indirectly pathing themselves towards the player to make it feel less like the player is being targeted and more like the player is dynamically being assaulted. So, with that being said on these, because we can't use these, we're going to go to these now again. So, I need my AI to get in here and to take this city. So, I'm going to do a task assault on this first team, and they're going to go to golf and hit OK. Task assault, they're going to go to foxtrot, hit OK. Task assault, these guys are going to go to my far left one of echo, hit OK. I'm going to create one more in the center of the town, and I'm going to do task CQB. And I'm going to do a radius that is way bigger than they were doing before. And that is because I now need them to go and find all of the enemies. So this team is now CQB strictly. So they're going to start running and start clearing buildings all over the place, while these guys relentlessly rush in, and they're not because I had the wrong thing on. 1 second before this gets bad. So, for those of you that aren't sure what I had on, I forgot to turn off the fleeing module. We're all going to do it, we're all going to mess it up, and it's okay. We just got to make sure we don't forget. So that was hotel, that was golf, foxtrot, and task assault echo. Because I'm dumb, and that's okay. And now the AI are going to start relentlessly charging forward in an attempt to take the waypoints they are at. This is going to override Lambs' ability to function to some extent, because I am telling the AI they have to charge these waypoints, whether they want to or not. While that's happening, my guys over here are going to keep trying to CQB the entire location. That's why these guys are crouched down, is they're attempting CQB. In theory, I could have put all of these AI on CQB and had them slowly comb this entire town. So now we're going to start seeing the AI dynamically using Lambs. They're going to continue rushing forward and attempting to fight the enemy. Now, some cool things that are going to come up. The AI with lambs will move in a safe path. The AI with lambs will dynamically assault if they're not heading to a target. So if I, now that they're in combat, hit task reset on these guys, they are in combat. Lambs is now going to govern them. So now that they're set up to lambs, they're going to start pathing to safe locations. While these guys are going to keep charging, because I told them to. But what's interesting is they all path in lines. They all path in group assault dynamics in ways that are safe. Does it look kind of dumb when you use the large-scale squads? Yes, it does. Lambs is great for other types of tasks. So again, now that they're kind of under attack, I'm probably going to go like that and let the AI do their own thing. It takes a moment for lambs to overwrite it, but it'll overwrite it in a second. They're currently suppressed, and they don't know what to do, so the AI need to get out of it. This is also when you can path them using one of these, such as you can destroy, lambs will assist you with that. So as we come over here, lambs has taken over these AI, and they're going to engage in the best way they can. This is a general tutorial on how to use lambs. I hope that we use it moving forward more effectively and better, because we can give our players more dynamic content in the long run if we do. A couple of notes that I'm testing and that we currently know are a problem. It seems that the way that we have been simplifying objects affects lambs. The way that I know this, and then this changes now, I'm going to feel crazy, is I spawned AI. I'm going to wait a few seconds, try to give it as close to the 30 as I can, so another about 5 seconds. This is why prep time is going to be important for us. Now I'm going to task them with task CQB, self radius. Let's make it a smaller one of just this area. And I'm going to turn it up and hit OK. Now, I want to see if this worked, because earlier it didn't. They had trouble pathing because of the simplify object scripts we've been running. I'm not sure why. But as you can see, the AI don't really know how to interact with this area correctly in a way that makes sense. Because these objects are simple objects. They're going to be simplified by our script like they always are. And for some reason, the AI are unable to path it correctly. So I've moved them. They still will have their task CQB in their area. But no matter what I do, they don't move out. I am testing this, and I am not sure what to do with this information fully. What it does mean right now for OPCOM is that lambs is going to primarily be used in areas like this that are base asset construction, where the AI can path correctly until I figure it out. If our server upgrade stuff goes through in the next few months, this might not be an issue anyway, because the AI will be able to just path on a mission without as much re-simplifying objects and things like that. Simple objects also have trouble with some of lambs' pathing, and it is the cause of a lot of our walking through walls issues we've been having. The AI walk through them because they don't know what else to do. Another note, these buildings, the large cargo towers, lambs cannot correctly path the garrison function on these guys. The AI will walk up to this floor and will fall down. To avoid that problem, you need to use teleport garrison when possible if you are going to garrison this location. So for example, if we were garrisoning here for combat, for the players to come in, I'd recommend using the teleport command to get the AI in the correct locations as quick as possible. If you guys have any questions, or you want me to go over the tutorial again, or sit down with you and do an in-person tutorial, I am happy to. I did it with Story last week. It was very insightful. Just let me know. We'll schedule some time, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial on how to use lambs.